Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage Eitel.
All right. My name is Mark Eitel. I host the Mr. Mortgage Show. Dom, my producer, and I do this every week right here at this time on this station. So thank you so much for joining us. And you, my friends, are in the right place if you've got questions regarding real estate and mortgages. I mean, the news has been crazy out there. Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? What's the Federal Reserve doing to interest rates? What's that going to do to the market? Are we in a bubble? I mean, listen, excuse me, you're reading the headlines. We're reading the headlines. We're getting the questions, and we're going to do our best to get you the information that you need to make better mortgage and real estate decisions for you and your family. So settle in for the next hour. We're going to dig into all of those topics. We're going to get to your questions, and we're going to cover so much more. So yes, you are in the right place if you've got questions, and we are going to do our very best to get you those answers. So let's dive right in. Another crazy week in the world of mortgage and real estate. We're all seeing the headlines. Wednesday, the Federal Reserve came out. They raised the overnight rate by 0.5 point, and it was super interesting, right? I think there was some fear that he was going to do a more aggressive move. So after the move was announced, the market responded really favorably. It was quite interesting. The stock market was up. Interest rates in the mortgage world were slightly down on the news, which was a surprise to a lot of people. But then Thursday, everybody woke up with that hangover and got back to reality, and the bottom fell out of the market on Thursday, and rates moved right back to where they were Wednesday morning. So kind of like the little kid who falls and doesn't realize that it hurt, and he stands up and he's kind of shaking it off, and then he winces. So the day after effect, we kind of went back to reality. So the good news is we kind of seem to find a bit of a range for interest rates. I mean, we're not in the 2s and 3s, but we got a strong hold in the 5s. So, and the reality is that's cheap money. You hear me say it all the time. You hear me all the time talking about finding the opportunity through the headlines. So that's where we are. Not a lot of real meaty news outside of that. A ton of headlines, a ton of people running around saying the sky is falling. It's quite interesting. The news has become like a horror movie trailer, right? It's just all of the scare tactics. It really is starting to drive me nuts. I don't remember how many, or I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember that movie Airplane. And there was a scene in Airplane where Lloyd Bridges was walking through the airport, and he's slapping everybody that's coming up to him. The Hare Krishna tries to give him a flower. That's kind of how I feel as I'm scrolling through my feed on a daily basis, and there's one more headline telling me that the real estate market is going to burn to the ground, and just crazy stuff out there. Most of you who listen to the show know I've been around for a long time. I've seen a lot of swings in the market, and I really believe that we're not in a bubble burst situation. I just got to tell you that. I talk about it all the time. Go to the Facebook page, The Mr. Mortgage Show. There's a video pinned at the top of that page that explains the foundation for my argument that we're not in a bubble. Absolutely, prices got expensive in a hurry. Appreciation certainly outpaced historical appreciation, and we're going to need a pullback, and we're going to need a flattening to allow time to catch up to itself. But for so many reasons I go into in that video, you'll see that I don't believe the bottom is going to fall out of this thing. So I just share all that to encourage everybody to exhale. There is certainly some things to be aware of, and we're going to dig into those, but definitely not a monster hiding in the shadows that's going to come out and steal your dreams. You just need to be aware of what's going on. We're going to arm you with the best information that we can to help you make the decisions you need to make to continue to move forward. And the reality is, depending on what the market is, you might need to adjust strategies a little bit, but overall, real estate has always made a lot of sense, and we'll dig into why. So speaking of digging in, I'm going to throw it right over to Dom. I know we have questions already queued up, so let's just dig right into your questions.
We have one that we missed last week. Kate texted us, what would you recommend people do who are looking for starter homes right now and are trying to save with skyrocketing rents and home prices that make home buying unattainable? Thank you.
Hey, and Kate, I want to say thanks again for that. And I did catch up with Kate via text after the show a little bit, but I wanted Dom to include that in today's questions because I thought it was super important. So Kate and I did exchange a few back and forths regarding this. And for the first-time home buyer, there are some down payment assistance programs out there. And I encourage everybody to start there. If you truly are in a position where you have the credit, you have the income, and you're lacking the down payment. And also, too, I'll throw this out, but I want to stay on down payment assistance, or what we call DPA, for a minute. But if you have the ability, parents, relatives, employers can always gift you the down payment. Many first-time buyer programs allow for that. But back to Kate's question and where we went with the answer last week after the show was the DPA programs, down payment assistance. So I encourage everybody to start there. There's some great programs out there. Now, they're a little tricky, and by tricky, I just mean they're not always available to everyone. It most often has a lot to do with how much money you make compared to the median income for your county. And most of the DPA programs are facilitated on a county level. So what you'll want to do is search your county, go to Google, type in your county, and then down payment assistance programs. And I know Virginia has a Virginia home buying program. In Florida, there is the SHIP program, and a great place to start. So Google down payment assistance program and make sure you put your county in there, because then you'll get the direct contact information. Outside of that, I shared with Kate a new program that I'm super excited to talk about with all of you. And if you know somebody who's in this circumstance and they're able to afford the property from a monthly payment standpoint, and they've got, credit, their credit actually for this program doesn't even have to be great, but they need time to save a down payment. There's a new program that allows you to lease option the property. And what's super cool about this program is you can go out there and pick the property that you want. So if there's, a house that you saw on Zillow that you love and you'd love to live there, this program allows you to identify that property. Now, they come in and they do an inspection and they make sure it meets the needs, but they'll buy it for cash and lease it back to you. And you have up to 3 years to buy that property back as the lease option, to go ahead and exercise that option. And we talked about that a little bit last week. We had a question, can't remember the gentleman's name, that shot us a question regarding doing a lease option with his landlord. This is very similar. So it's super cool. You go out there and you pick the property. They approve the property. They put the contract on the property. They put a lease option in place with you. They close on it for cash, and they give you up to 3 years to exercise your option. And it's a predetermined appreciation amount. So, and I'm happy to talk anybody through this who has questions, and I'll encourage you to give me a shout off the air so we can walk you through it. But it's an amazing program for somebody who knows where they want to live. They can afford to live there right now, and they just don't have the down payment, or they don't have the ability to receive that via a gift from friends or family. They can do this lease option. So also, too, one really cool part about this particular program is a portion of your monthly payment goes escrow to your future down payment usage. So each month, and I'm just going to use round numbers, and it's all property specific, but let's say you pay $2,000 a month, $200 or $300 of that per month will go into an escrow account that you can use for your down payment later. So super cool program. One more option that's now available. And then we have up to 3 years to get you mortgage ready. So we're approved to use that program. I'm happy to do it with you, happy to answer any questions that you have. But within that 36-month time period, when you're ready, you can go ahead and buy that property. And here's probably one of the coolest parts about the program is if for some reason you choose not to buy that property, you can walk away with it, walk away from the property with no further obligation and get your escrowed savings, if you will, back. So super cool program. It's a lease option program that we now have available. We can help you utilize it. We've got the approved agents on the roster that can go ahead and write the contract on behalf of the lease option company. And then we have 3 years to get you mortgage ready. So hopefully that answers questions. I know Kate threw that out last week, and I just wanted to kind of address all that to get us started this week. So you hear the music. That means Dom's bringing us into a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes to dig into more of your questions. Again, my name is Mark Eitel, and this is the Mr. Mortgage Show. Hey, it's Mark Eitel here, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. And you've heard me talk about the valuation tool that we use in our lending practice almost daily. It's not quite an appraisal, but it's way more accurate than one of those online estimates. And we're happy to run one of those reports for you at no charge. Just visit freevaluereport.org. That's freevaluereport.org. Give us a little information about the property, and we'll be happy to send you your report. That's freevaluereport.org.
Here's another 5-star review.
My wife and I own a small business. And the way our accountant file our taxes, we don't show much income on tax returns. Because of this, it looks as if we don't make the money. This was a problem for our bank when we applied for a mortgage. But not for Mark. He verifies our income by using our monthly bank statements. Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team made a big difference for me. Yes, I am happy to recommend Mr. Mortgage Mark.
It's not every day that you need an appraisal, whether it's for a divorce settlement, estate planning, or maybe you're appealing a tax assessment, or you just want to make sure you have adequate coverage in your property insurance. When you need a certified appraisal, turn to my friends at SOFLappraisal.com. That's SOFLappraisal.com. Peter and his team have been appraising properties here in South Florida for decades. SOFLappraisal.com. And tell them you heard this on the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now, 561-291-8569.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. And yes, please shoot us your questions, 561-291-8569. That's the Anytime hotline, 561-291-8569. And one more time for the people in the back, 561-291-8569. We'll get your questions on the air and get you the answers that you need. Also, too, I know we've already got a couple coming in via the email, so I'm super excited to see the activity this week. Thank you, guys. In the email, you can find that question submission on the internet at www.mr.mortgage. That's mr.mortgage. And you heard me talk about the video library on the Facebook page. That's the Mr. Mortgage Show on Facebook. So got all of that housekeeping out of the way. Now you know how to find us with your questions. And speaking of questions, let's keep this party rolling. I'm going to throw it over to Dom. I know we had one come in, I think, via email.
Yes, John just emailed us. I think we're ready to start looking for a house, but I'm nervous that the market is going to crash. Do you have any advice?
Hey, I do have some advice. Just do it. I think the reality is that, and again, that this is a perfect question to reinforce sending everybody to that video on Facebook. I don't think the market's going to crash. I do think it's going to slow down, but I don't think it's going to start going in reverse. You know, when you're going 100 miles an hour and you slow to 40, it's a significant difference, but you're still moving in the right direction. And I kind of feel like that's where we are. So, John, I'm going to encourage you to just go ahead and do it. And I want to share a quick story to reinforce this, if you will. Most of you know I started in the mortgage business in 1999. And since then, I've seen a lot of swings in the housing market, but none more dramatic than the bubble of the early 2000s. So I've been thinking about this circumstance a lot lately because of all the questions and the similarities in certain aspects of today's market. So I revisited a client who purchased a property in 2005. And I'm not going to mention anybody by name, but I do want to share their story because I think this is going to speak to John and everybody who's nervously on the sidelines. So they paid $382,000 for a townhouse in the summer of 2005, arguably the tippy top of the bubble in their neighborhood. I mean, when the bubble burst, the neighbor's house sold for $180,000. So they were $200,000 upside down when that house sold, and they were the highest comp in the neighborhood for over a decade. And this couple, thankfully, they liked the house. They stayed in the property. And long story short, 17 years later, that property's worth over $500,000 and they own it free and clear. So my point in sharing this story is simply that